Because
am I still the lone viewer of Birds of Prey in the room?
Yeah,
You are. I wanted to. I guess the only thing that I want to say first is, how do you feel about them adding to the name?
Gosh,
because marketing is such an interesting.
Because you and I had a conversation about the Birds of Prey and us saying maybe it has something to do with the title, and then immediately the next day we heard that that theaters were like changing the name to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. Yeah, and then so like the inclusion of Harley Quinn probably gives it a little bit more exposure.
Yeah, well, and that's what I think is so interesting about it is like I think this movie suffers from a kind of like a collage of problems that led to it not being as popular because, you know, like the critics are more than fine with it. And just having seen it, I found it kind of a breath of fresh air from where DC had been a little bit. I didn't, you know, I found the humor to be kind of hit or miss, and it owed a lot to Deadpool and the or kind of fourth wall breaking self-referential stuff. But it's not the same kind of movie that DC's been making. It's almost entirely devoid of superpowers. Really, the only superpowers they play with are Black Canary's like Sonic Scream.
Yep.
And even that is used as kind of like the big climax, not to spoiler too much, but like a lot of things lead up to just powers being used one time, and it's like the type of thing that it wipes, like she's done, like she's out of the movie after she uses her powers one time.
Okay.
So what I kind of, because my big beef with the DC universe probably up to this point, set aside the tone, set aside the kind of the way they depict all these beloved characters, but really the way they incorporated the superpowers into their universe, I always found to be the biggest part I struggled with, because like every fight scene with Superman level people is just, I'm going to punch you, you're going to skid across the room, you'll get into your like slide for you to go back and punch the guy across the world. What was nice about this one is it's all street level Gotham stuff. And so
very down to earth.
Yep. It very much set the kind of tone for what the criminal underworld of Gotham is like, which was a kind of nice to see that there is like a really healthy non-superpowered criminal syndicate going on. And so it was nice kind of seeing them scale things down to a story. And you know, like the characters are all pretty rushed because they're introducing a lot of people no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, Rosie Perez is playing a character, Renee Montoya, who is the second inheritor of a persona called The Question.
Rosie Montoya, is she Alita? Battle Angel?
No. Rosie Perez is, y'all seen White Men Can't Jump?
Yeah.
She's the girlfriend from White Men
Can't
Can't Jump.
She was real big in the 90s.
Yeah. Still looks great, by the way. Not gonna lie. But so she's, it's characters of that level of caliber. So this is I would say like similar to Guardians, where it's like no one's got kind of the innate, even like you ask grandma about Batman, she's at least somewhat familiar with Batman. But like The Question, that one started off of an obscure character that was essentially based as like a mouthpiece for objectivist political theory. And then it kind of like morphed into, you know, 3 iterations of the character later.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like a pissed off cop against the system. And so I think they did a lot better job of like kind of giving you a character study for a lot of different people. So I found it really interesting in that sense. So it actually really got me stoked for Batman, because it's saying, okay, like you can have a DC story that doesn't involve these giant, like borderline huge, theological discussions. Yeah. It's like, that's what really bummed me out about Superman in particular. The way they went with it is Superman as a Christ figure, I think, is such a swing and a miss on what the kind of philosophical point behind Superman is. And so it's really nice seeing them kind of realize like, hey, you're gonna have so much to gain by going under where Marvel is and just playing in the muck and like looking at these characters that aren't super powered, have kind of realistic problems, and it's like a diamond heist is essentially kind of the big thing tying it all together. So it's scaled down, and I actually really liked it. So it'll be interesting. How
much of a callback or how many mentions of the Suicide Squad do they do in that movie? Like does Will Smith make like a small cameo?
Nada, next to nothing.
Is Harley Quinn the only Suicide Squatter there?
Yeah, and I think the implication from Suicide Squad is that is the not Jason Todd, or maybe it is Jason Todd. My DC knowledge is a little iffy, but so it was implied in the Suicide Squad and Batman versus Superman that Harley Quinn was the one who killed that killed Robin. and you're seeing the bat.
wow.
Yeah, so that's all stuff that's from like the kind of extended edition that they had to cut out. But you see that suit of armor in Batman versus Superman.
It says ha ha ha
Exactly.
all over it. Yeah.
I
So-
thought that was maybe like a callback to the Killing Joke or something.
No,
like
so
that.
this is a callback to a kind of a famous comics moment where the Joker kidnapped Robin and beat him to death with a crowbar.
Yeah.
And so, like, the implication there was that Harley was involved in that, and that's why Batman was like beating the shit out of her, like punching this woman in the
shit.
face with
Yeah.
like not holding back at all.
Yeah.
And so they had to character rehab that because I think that's wiped. Like, I'm not sure where they're gonna go with Bat-Pat. I think I'm ready to let myself down, and there's gonna be no Robin again. I think I'm in the minority where I like Robin more than Batman by a pretty huge margin.
Which one? Dick Grayson?
Dick Grayson.
Or Jason?
I don't
or-
mind the new Robins, but it's all about Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
my boy Dick is a really obnoxious omission from the larger. DC
I
universe.
love Nightwing. Like,
Dude.
Nightwing is probably one of the coolest DC characters ever.
And think about it. That's like the one superhero trope that everyone's scared to explore is the sidekick. Because I think there's something really interesting to be played with there about a character kind of coming into their own and realizing that maybe my mentor isn't the best person to be kind of taking my cues from.
he realizes, I don't agree with your methods. I don't agree with what you're doing. And he goes on his own and he does just as good.
And it's a take on like looking at like the tragedy that shapes Batman's life. Dick Grayson's life is equally shaped.
I was gonna say it'd be a really interesting thing for them to do with the films too. I mean, with the last two iterations of Batman, he's not been his own biggest fan.
Right.
He's well aware of all his flaws, and I mean, I think that'd be a good way to kind of tie that back together. Is like, oh geez, I couldn't even mentor this kid,
right?
Who am I to be going out and making these decisions about what's right and wrong?
Exactly, and that's what I think is going to be. I'm hoping. I mean, and this is my problem with being like comic book movies in general is I'm just too guilty of bringing what I want to the theater every time.
Yeah,
I always feel like I got everything figured out. Like I know what would be best, and I always leave disappointed because they're always like focusing on something different.
Speaking of Batman, we saw these set photo pics. Obviously, this isn't Robert Pattinson, so this is some sort of a stunt double.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that didn't look like Pattinson.
that jawline is not Pattinson. But what do you think about the bike? What do you think about the armor? The lack of a cape and the ears. I mean, look at the bat cycle here.
Ooh.
I mean.
So I mean,
it looks. I will say his bike looks a little more realistic than some of the vehicles we've been seeing in the more recent movies.
What was that? The Tumbler.
The Tumbler.
Yeah. This looks a little more believable for a guy who does this as a hobby.
I like that you made that observation. You have any other ideas, Zach? Tyler?
Here's what I like: is there's bat wings on the bike.
You're
Like,
talking
are they
about
wings
the
or the ears?
The ears?
The ears, sorry, bat ears. So I mean, like that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping. I hope they go a little more campy with it. I don't want them to go full Batman 66, but like play up the fact that this is a guy who's got a really messed up way of dealing with the fact that his parents were shot.
Yeah, let's keep the nipples off his suit.
And so I think the nipples have stayed off of his suit.
Oh, thank God. Yep, doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
See, I like that suit. I mean, it looks more like, something somebody had cobbled together out of bits and pieces of body armor. I don't know. I mean, these first couple of photos I've seen, it looks a little more like
More realistic.
I hate to say, but yeah, realistic.
Yeah. So the school of thought here is that this is probably Batman Year Zero. This is whenever he just got back. Yeah,
I was wondering about the time frame of this too, just because
the dude's super young who's playing him, and so this is the shit that he's just kind of cobbled together. It's he hasn't perfected his skill yet. He's he first goes out with like, essentially Daredevil. He has like a bandana on, kind of covers him.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this costume, and I mean, like those pouches on his belt. I mean, that's military surplus
that's just
stuff.
general.
And look at those gloves. I mean, you and I can go get a pair of those gloves.
They're MX gloves,
Yeah, right. That's really all they are. Is like like motocross gloves.
Yeah.
So this makes me wonder too. Is what I'm hoping for more than anything out of this? Actually, I guess there's two things. One is more detective stuff. I think they've never really played it up as much.
haven't.
I'd like to see more
But
detective
two,
stuff.
Agreed.
I want more Bruce Wayne time, and I want to show kind of the struggle of keeping up the appearances of being Bruce Wayne, and especially because Zorro is such a big kind of thematic inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Don Diego de Luna, if that's his name, and I'm sure I got that wrong, but he plays this kind of dopey idiot character when he's at his alter ego, and then when he becomes Zorro is when he's like really himself. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit more of he's got to keep up this I'm a dummy playboy to throw everyone off the scent, and maybe tie that into my suit isn't as nice because I got forensic accountants looking through the books trying to make sure we're not defrauding the government, and like they could as easily discover like I'm setting aside all this slush fund to be Batman. I mean, I gotta cobble it together.
Yeah, so I mean, other than like, unlike the way that Christian Bale was portrayed as Batman, where it's just like, oh, we have this trillions of dollars into defense spending and nobody's gonna notice if it all disappears.
Exactly. Except for one guy.
One guy.
And they have access to all the communication networks for the whole city.
Yeah. So this is a picture of Batman Year Zero. And as you can see, it looks like a cobbled together military surplus. He's
on a dirt bike.
He's essentially on a dirt bike. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of, I think this is where the inspiration for the new movie's coming from. They're just retelling the story. Do you guys feel like they're going to try and tie it in with the Joker movie at all?
No, it can't be. It can't be.
You don't think so?
No, because like there's I mean, they've been pretty upfront about the fact that Joker universe is its own thing, right? That was my understanding.
That was my understanding. I haven't seen the movie, but that was my understanding as well.
I just don't think you could turn that Joker into like a criminal mastermind from where it went. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I thought the takeaway I had from that movie is more that like they explain how he could have all these followers completely without
mindlessly following
actually
him.
Trying to make it so. It's just all of a sudden everyone's worshiping the ground he's walking on, and he's just kind of rolling with the punches. So you know what? I'd be fine if we don't see the Joker fight Batman at all with this iteration. Fight the mob. He hasn't dealt with the mob since Batman '89.
Yeah, but don't you? I'm pretty sure they're like, hey, let's make a Joker too.
Yeah, and go for it.
Yeah.
I think just keep it separate.
Oh, okay. I was afraid that they were probably going to try to tie in Year Zero Batman with maybe a little bit of Joker in there somewhere.
Well, wouldn't that also say, I mean, like if he's harassing young Bruce Wayne, then that Joker's going to be like mid-60s.
Yeah, he's going to be hella old. Yeah, he's going to be hella old.
And they could give him some like immortality serum or some crap and make it believable. But
I don't know if they go down the Red Hood route.
It's possible.
Yeah, I don't know. No. Tyler's like,
and they could do
Red Hood?
They could do it Batman Beyond style.
Yeah, I don't know.